Evan, Kyle, what's good? Tyler, what's good? Tiffany. Well, we got everybody tapping in today. I love to see this. Love to see this.
The Brady Bunch song is going on in my head because I have.
Should I just go through the roll call and just be like, boom, boom, boom? Hey, Justine.
Hey, what's up? How are you feeling?
Oh, we're good to go. We are good to go. I'm locked in.
Great.
I need to expand this window a little bit so I can see everybody's faces. Yeah, so if you're new to the Finessed Media events, we like to have our cameras on and the mics muted. Yeah. All right, we're gonna wait for a couple more people, just a couple more people, and then we'll get started. All right, I'm gonna give it like a minute and a half, 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna get it rolling. Everybody drop in the chat where you're from. A lot of London people today. If there's more than 3, I count that as a lot. What is that, Guildford, England? Wow, okay. Northern VA, Philly stand up, okay. Connecticut, Ohio, I got you. All right, give it 1 or 2 more minutes. We still got a couple people trying to get in here. If anybody wants to raise their hand and give a quick bio of themselves before we get going, I'd love to hear what you guys say. Just talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, get your name out there, you know.
I'm gonna
start.
Oh.
What?
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I'm gonna put Malachi on the spot because I invited him here, and I'm excited for him to meet the rest of you because he's like, Finessed. Why do I keep hearing this? Who is this Finessed? So I just want
Malachi, say your words, my boy. Say your words.
Put me on blast. All right, I got you. You guys can hear me, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm Malachi. I'm a music producer, and I do work for hire on soundbetter.com, helping people to kind of take their songs apart, remix them, and give them back so that they can get a second chance. I also coach music producers to help them finish all their projects reliably. So I used to be at Interscope Records, and that's kind of where I learned how to work efficiently, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
but I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. All right, let's get this show on the road. Let me get some snaps, some quiet snaps in the air if y'all ready. Yeah, there they are. Let me get them snaps. All right, so this is our music and gaming and virtual world event hosted by yours truly, Madison King. Today we've got amazing guests Andy Norman, Samira Behrouzan, and Inder Phull. They're all industry experts, crazy in their field. They're doing huge things. So hopefully you're ready to get some good notes. Everybody have some notes ready because we're gonna have a Q&A after this around 12:30. We'll start off with the interviews from the panelists. Like I said, we'll move around the Q&As around 12:30, 12:35, just seeing how the timing goes. So yeah, this event is really important because as the world moves and progresses, we're really seeing this integration between music and the video game world, and somehow these artists are getting their music into the video game world, and we want to know how they're doing it. How did that integration start, and why is it becoming such a big thing? You got to think about games like NBA 2K. These games are huge, and having a song on NBA 2K, someone's going to listen to that. Say they play for 3 hours, they're going to hear that song on loop for 3 hours, and then what? NBA 2K sells 20 million copies of a video game, so that's 20 million streams times the 3 hours you're listening to it. Really big stuff. Really big stuff. So with that being said, I'm going to give the floor to our panelists. I'll give a quick intro on them. Behrouzan, who is the artist and events manager for Above and Beyond and Anjuna Beats. Huge, go Annie. We got Samira, who's the head of marketing and gaming for Zedd Music. huge, amazing, crazy, crazy. And then we got Inder, who's the director and head for music, gaming, and innovation at Graphite Music, a real London man. We love a good London man. With that being said, I'm going to give the floor to Inder to start off. Give a quick, a little background about yourself. Tell us about yourself and how you got to the role that you're in today. Then we'll give it to Annie, and we'll move on from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. So yeah, my name's Inder. At the moment, I'm running a company called Graphite, which is basically kind of a mixed company. We've got a few different arms. We used to run major festivals. We've got artist management and a brand partnerships team. Basically, my journey started whilst I was at university. I set up an ad agency. Basically, it didn't start off as an ad agency. It was just kind of like a creative movement is what we called it, and it was just like getting cool people from music, skating, everything in between, and just finding ways to collaborate. And then I kind of carried that on through after university. Won some major clients when we started, and essentially my role has always been around connecting artists and creative people into different worlds, whether that's brand partnerships, gaming, film, anything in between. So yeah, essentially kind of always been interested in exploring that, like where music fits, but then also the crossover between music and other industries. And yeah, always been running my own business essentially, and kind of just things expanded naturally. And I guess we'll talk about gaming in a minute and how that fits into everything. But yeah.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name's Annie. I'm the artist and events manager for a Grammy-nominated trio called Above and Beyond, and they have their own record label, Anjuna Beats, based out of London. And I operate under an involved group, which encompasses all different aspects of the music business, including recordings, publishing live, and artist management, which means I get to get stuck into all different elements and learn a lot about different aspects of the business. Up until the beginning of last year, I was really focused on producing large-scale events for Above and Beyond, doing 25,000 cap shows at the Gorge Amphitheater in Washington, and running big broadcast events in Prague, Hong Kong, and all over the US. Obviously, with touring and events on pause, I've been really focusing on further integrating with fitness and gaming spaces, and introducing our music to new audiences while simultaneously giving Above and Beyond and Anjuna's existing fan bases another way to engage and experience the music without being able to get on the dance floor. Music doesn't only exist in the confines of clubs and festivals. And as a label, we have this unique opportunity to reach through to these new audiences, break down these traditional structures. Clubbing, fitness, working out, gaming, they're all very different things, but music and dance music definitely has a place in all of it. So that's what I've been working on.
Crazy
That's
introductions.
amazing. That is
I love
amazing.
them.
Yeah, let's hear what you got, Samira.
So nice to meet you guys. I'm super happy to be here. I actually got my start in fashion. That was kind of where I started my bread and butter. I started when I was 16, and then did that for about 10 years, and which is how I kind of got into gaming, if you will. I've been a gamer my whole entire life. So to be able to kind of intersect at the fashion and gaming was really exciting for me. I started making what is like high performance apparel for gamers, kind of tested around like on some pros and stuff like that within basically the confines of Red Bull. And then from there, kind of hopped around and joined an esports team out in New York. And then now I work with Zedd. And at Zedd, I handle everything gaming and music. I should make gaming, music, and marketing, but really there is a team who does just the music. So I'd be lying if I said I handle his music, but I do handle anything that like intersects at that cross section. And I also, looking for new opportunities. I do a little bit of everything. We're a really small team. We're 4 people. So we all kind of wear different hats, but I'm just looking for new opportunities, exciting ones that really lie like in his passion. Like that's my whole driver for everything I do. So yeah, that's my quick introduction.
Please tell me you guys are hearing all this knowledge that they're dropping right now. Crazy titles, crazy titles. All right, so with that being said, let's move on to the first question. So I really wanted to know how the relationship between music and gaming has grown since you've been in the industry, because I'm sure when you guys first got into the industry or when it first started, there wasn't really this huge integration or a real push towards having, you know, your artist music in a video game. So I really just wanted to know how that relationship between music and gaming has grown since you've gotten into the industry.
I mean, I'm happy to jump in and like start maybe. So I joined Team Zedd about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, and pretty much as I started joining, music and gaming they've always kind of been synonymous. Like you don't really realize it, but like all the biggest games going all the way back to Pong, and I did a whole study on this, have always had music integrated into it. And that's what really made games feel really exciting. You know, it started off as like chip tune and it kind of progressed and progressed. And so music and gaming have always been together. So sorry. But basically what we've seen now is that artists are, you know, looking for new ways to connect with their fans. And I apologize for the doggy in the back. But as teams are looking for, yes, I just saw Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Yes. But as teams are looking for new ways to kind of connect on the music side, they're like looking at these opportunities. Like a year and a half ago, it was almost considered I don't want to put it this way, but like a marketing stunt, a gimmick. Like, let's get the music in there. Let's find new audiences. And then now we're looking at music and gaming as, oh my God, like this is a whole like untapped industry in the sense that like gaming has evolved so much and the capacity to kind of bring music in has changed a lot. So like the experiences that can be had in games has changed. So like the evolution of gaming has changed the way we consume music in gaming. So like we're just basically evolving to that as well. And as those change, like new opportunities are arising. So I think that you'll continue to see more and more integrations, wilder integrations, like more innovative. And it'll be really exciting to see how different artists kind of play upon their passions in authentic ways to kind of bring their unique style and their flavor to different games.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, like talking about, you know, there's certain games like Grand Theft Auto, for example, which, you know, they implemented like the radio stations from like a long time ago. And it felt revolutionary in terms of the way you'd experience music in a game. I think one of the big things, obviously COVID has kind of forced natural attention towards the gaming industry in terms of the music industry can't exist right now as we used to know it in terms of events. So you look at things like Travis Scott and Fortnite, and that's like, okay, what the amount of money he made from that one show, although the activation probably took a long time to produce, was probably considerably more than he would have made if he was physically touring, if you were to compare it like by like. And there's a few different examples. There's a major festival in Europe called Tomorrowland, as an example, and they did a collaboration with Epic Games where they launched a virtual music festival. And I believe the assumption was they made about $20 million dollars or euros or whatever in revenue from people accessing this. And it's kind of like the natural transition had to be over COVID, that if you can't experience music in the real world, you're going to experience it in the virtual world. And that's kind of opened a lot of people's eyes into not just gaming in the traditional sense of sync and licensing, but what can gaming platforms provide you as an artist in terms of creating a virtual space or a virtual venue or a virtual way to enjoy someone's music. And I think that transition is partly due to the fact that information is now kind of democratized. Like if you want to learn how to create a game, you probably could get the basics in place in terms of understanding things like the Unreal Engine, which I suggest everyone to look into. And that's really been one of the big transitions as well over the past few years, is these tools to create games and to create kind of virtual experiences is a little bit more accessible now. And that's kind of why you're also seeing a lot more happening in this space in terms of artists, not just big ones, but also kind of emerging artists like Deadmau5, for example, you know, experimenting within these kind of virtual spaces. So yeah, there's tons of stuff, but I think the future of it to me is not just the AAA big game studios, but actually the independent artists coming and creating their own virtual gaming experiences, which is definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Annie, did you have anything on the integration?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of echo on what these other guys have been saying already, I just think the most exciting thing happening right now is these deeply integrated collaborations between artists and games. So like Inder said, it's not just syncing music to be heard in the back of the game. You're actually having in-game concerts and making playable characters and doing exclusive premieres of music in game. And so and on the flip side, I think there's also a lot of gaming that's influencing mainstream culture with artists like Thundercat, for example, whose records are kind of love letters to Sega. So I think gaming is also infiltrating the mainstream culture and in a way that it hasn't in the past.
And I know like Anjuna Beats has a really, really big pull on Twitch. Have you seen any like crazy shifts there on Twitch?
I mean, like, I guess lockdown has provided this opportunity. It just happened almost by fluke that Twitch ended up being the best streaming platform for DJs to perform, just because they've basically not squared away their licensing. So a lot of people aren't getting their streams taken down when they're performing live like they would when they're on Instagram or on Facebook. And I think that will change, and I'm sure because it's owned by Amazon, so it's something that they have really got to crack down on soon. But it just, there was a window of opportunity for music to really connect with that gaming community through Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. So like Inder was saying, you're seeing this big push on like, you know, Fortnite and Travis Scott integrating his whole sound and doing virtual concert over Fortnite and things like that. Do you think the same energy towards pushing artists on video games is going to happen once COVID is over, or once like concerts are going back over? Do you think that it's going to die down a little bit, or is that same energy going to be going through and through?
I think it'll still keep happening for sure. I think gaming and music, although the connection has always been there on a kind of sync basis, but what's been proven is that with these integrations, like artists can bring significant audiences to the game platform. So, you know, where an artist might not just host a virtual concert, but I think, you know, we mentioned like playable characters and like artist skins and stuff like that. All of these will continue happening, I believe. And actually, a part of our business is focused on basically turning that into a more scalable model, so game developers can work more effectively with artists. At the moment, for an artist to get into a game, or a game developer to find an artist, it requires a lot of relationships and insight and information. So I think it will continue growing, and we'll just see different variations on how it looks. It won't just be concerts. I think it will be, you know, more things like artist characters being in games, and yeah, all that kind of stuff is going to continue happening. And the results are there to kind of prove that it works. You know, if the main thing is finding a fit between the artist audience and the game developer's target audience, because that's the piece that really requires a little bit more kind of insight into like, does the data match up in terms of their social following and the following the game developer is also going for. But yeah, I think it'll continue growing. I mean, this last 2 years, I saw one thing which was super interesting, just very quickly. A festival that we work with, they were streaming a virtual concert, and they did a partnership with a racing game and were streaming the festival in the racing game at the same time as the festival was going on. The game was called Asphalt. The festival was called Junction 2 Virtual. And that was like a great example of something we won't probably talk about much here, but research the metaverse and what that means. It's basically this idea of kind of, you know, physical reality and virtual reality in a sense coming together, and you know, blurring the lines between what is a virtual fantasy world and what is the real world. So yeah, definitely check out Junction 2's Asphalt partnership, and then also just some wider stuff about what the metaverse means and how that's transforming the whole digital ecosystem as we know it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So one question that I did want to ask, and one that I'm honestly super interested in, but it might be a toughie for you guys to answer. And with that being said, I'll let Samira start. How are you getting these songs into video games, and how are you getting these songs on these platforms in the first place? Are you reaching out? Is the company reaching to you? And then what's the process from start to finish on something like that?
Yeah, great question. Like Inder mentioned, it's a lot based on relationships. So I am definitely the one who is reaching out to these companies. And what I really do is I'm creating what is essentially like a pitch deck. And I send that out to these companies, and I'm presenting the artist, which in my case happens to be Zedd. And I'm showing all the different things that he's worked on, music catalog and everything. And I'm giving them the whole full picture. But the really like, how do you work with these companies, there has to be synergies there. I think the artist that you represent, or if you're an aspiring artist that wants to reach out, like you have to have love for the game. I think one of the things that you can't do is just say, okay, I want to be in this game because I want to be in it because I want the exposure. You have to actually understand who you're catering to and the players, like be a player in the space, like understand the characters, the meta, everything, to really be able to speak to it, like not only like musically, but visually as well when you present yourself as a whole. So I think that it should be, I think in any case, it should always be an authentic, but I would like an authentic approach. But I would say definitely one of the best things you can do is like have that, like your portfolio ready to perform, like to show to these companies. Cause that's what they really will base, their decision off of, social following, like Inder mentioned, type of music you produce. And I think it's really important for an artist to stay true to themselves, never warp yourself to kind of fit into a game. Your music style should not change. You should just find the right partner who's kind of using the type of music you're producing in their games. And then on top of that, I would say that probably one of the most like important things is just to be patient. These processes take a really long time. Game development takes a really long time, and they have internal teams that are working on music. So just be open to kind of starting wherever you can, whether that's working with their composition and music teams and, kind of getting your foot in the door that way. It's just a process for anybody, whether no matter how big or how small you are of an artist, it's just be patient with the whole process.
Right. That's actually some really good advice. Inder, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, the one thing I would think about is, if you start to, when you're playing, you think about your social media strategy on its own first before you think about gaming for a second, right? And think of it like, when you start to engage your audience and create these engagement strategies to like, get them to talk to you and play with you in some ways, is gaming involved in that in the first place? And if it doesn't look like you're an artist at games, even though you might, but you'd never show this to the world, I think it's very hard for a game developer, for example, to. Oh, have I glitched out?
Are you okay?
We can still hear your voice.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think one thing definitely, like, think about the social content you put out there and like include, create some gaming content, like invite your fans in to play a game with you. Like there's little things like that, even though they're very small, you're going to be on the radar much more likely than if you weren't. And that fit has to be there. Like when I'm searching for artists, like when I've been briefed, for example, by a game, first I usually try and find artists that I know will actually game and can talk about it authentically. Otherwise there's just no point. Like, yeah, okay, we can leverage your image and it'll work, but I'd rather find an artist that I think actually enjoys gaming in some way, or there's like a closer fit.
Yeah.
So definitely explore that.
That's awesome. Annie, did you want to add just a little bit on that one?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the same thing, as it's got to be organic. I don't think you can force yourself into a brand if you don't relate to it at all. I think on our side, like on the record label side, we'd already noticed that gamers and people who were streaming were using some of our music already 4 or 5 years ago on their Twitch streams. So it was really about us working with Twitch as a platform to figure out how we can integrate with the gaming community on the gamers' terms. So we didn't want to like just put our logo onto some in-game advertising and just kind of force our way in. We had a conversation with like Twitch to be like, how can we enhance the gamers' experience? What tools can we provide for them so that we can become part of the community rather than just like trying to sell something? So what we ended up coming up with was this catalog deal where we essentially cleared the rights to 350 tracks of our from our record labels, and said that any content creators on the platform could use those tracks for free without any fear of any of their content being muted.
Like DMCA'd or anything like that?
Yeah. So they can just have the tracks and have their broadcasts left up as VODs on Twitch. So I think in that way we were able to to enhance the emotional moments of a gaming experience without being like, hey, buy our records.
Well, and then you guys really emphasize the point that like, if you wanted to, you know, pitch a song to a music or excuse me, a gaming company, that artist really has to have the sound for it and really has to be someone who plays video games. Like you want to see that passion there. So with that being said, what are some good ways an artist can make their song good for gaming, quote unquote?
I mean, the first thing I would do is actually just take some video content off YouTube and just make it in-house for yourself. Like just see what it sounds like to create that process, you know, take like I don't know, like a game trailer or anything in between and just start making music to that trailer first, just to see if you can actually like align with it, or take your tracks and put them alongside it, see what happens. And, you know, that process is one thing I think would be, that's probably the main tip I would give at the start, is like, you know, create content alongside gaming content and see what happens. Create music for it, like just for yourself, and then you could probably start sending that stuff out too in some ways to game developers. But I mean, that side of sync is not really our expertise, so I'll probably hand it over to someone else.
Yeah, Samira, could you add a little bit on that one?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to touch on two things for everybody. Sure. Like Inder had mentioned, basically to the last question, that it's really important for your social presence to like match up what you're saying. I really wanted to highlight that. Like as somebody who reached out to these brands, I did collaborations and unique things such as doing a Minecraft playable music video. And then I reached out to Microsoft. Like there was a real, like that was genuine, and they responded to me immediately after we did that. They're like, oh shit, you know, Zedd's actually out there using the game in innovative ways. Dope. Let's talk to him. And that kind of accelerated the conversation. So I definitely wanted to highlight that point again before we like moved on to the next. And then as far as how do you make your music good for games? You don't. You just make your music. Like straight up. Like you should not be changing the type of music you make for a game. There are games out there that will suit your music style. For example, Cuphead is not gonna put rap music in their game. They're doing jazz, you know, they're looking for jazz artists, orchestral music. It's like, you just have to do what is best for you. But Inder is so right. Just so much of the music that you see in games, people have created content. They've put their music behind it. They see how it fits, how it feels. They put it up on social media. And now with platforms such as TikTok, Triller, and everything else, like just get your music up there, the sounds, everything, sync it up to like, you know, let's just Valorant clip. Like you just go ahead and just wrecking some fools and get in an ace. Great. Like just see how that feels. And, you know, one of the things is like, don't be afraid to reach out to gamers who are creating content on YouTube, who need music that is not synced up to like a record label or licensed, you know, like reach out to them and have them use your music for a Fortnite clip. Like music labels are reaching out to people like at FaZe or whoever else to be like, hey man, please use our music because it gets so much attention. So I would say definitely use that to your advantage as an artist who doesn't have to jump in through the hoops of like licensing. Oh my God, my label is going to take the track down and everything else. Like go wild as you're aspiring and like just try and get your try and get your track in the hands of as many creators as possible. From YouTube, VTubers to Twitch, there's just such a breadth of opportunity for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Annie, do you want to add a little bit on that one?
I mean, Samira really hit the nail on the head there. I think these gamers and these content creators have such huge viewer numbers, and it's basically free promo for you. Like people are going to notice, people are going to be like, hey, what's that track? Who's that person? And that's a really great way to, again, be like integrating organically with the community. So yeah, that's some solid advice.
It really was. Let me get some snaps, some quiet snaps in the chat for that one. That was crazy. That was crazy. All right, now I think that we're gonna move to a little bit of a Q&A session so everyone in the chat can ask the questions that they want to these lovely, lovely panelists. So if you wanna ask a question, give me a quick hand raise. And if not, I'm gonna call on you. All right, Brianna, let's get a question going. And then I'll get to you, Tyler. I got you.
Me, little old me.
Oh, Lolo, yeah.
Hi, my name is Brianna Knight. I'm an intern for Finesse Media. I'm on Tiffany Wade team. Whoop, whoop. So one of my questions is, okay, do you feel that you have, I guess, a database of startup companies for video games or bigger ones? And where should small time artists begin? Should they shoot their shot for the bigger companies that are out there, or should they try with the smaller ones? And then how can they try to gain that organic relationship?
I'm definitely of the mind that you just kind of you shoot your shot. I mean, so just to give you guys an example, like a real life one, I the way I met Zedd and Zedd's team is that I pretty much cold called. Like I wanted a bunch of influencers to show up in an event that I was doing in New York City. I had zero budget, so I couldn't even pay him for him to attend. And then I knew that he was obsessed in a nice way with the game that we were basically involved in, which was Overwatch at the time. So I basically reached out to them and I'm like, hey, we're doing this dope fan event. It's an awesome pop-up shop in land that we're doing. We'd love to have you there, but I got zero budget. And I was definitely expecting to hear like you crazy, this is never gonna happen. And instead I got back hell yeah, I'd love to show up. And I was like, what the hell? And then he came through and the rest is like history. We became friends then. And then now I work for him, which is crazy. But I wanted to say that because I think it's incredibly important to never be afraid to reach out to every company, but make sure that your portfolio and what you're presenting is just dialed. You really want to make sure you're showcasing all your work. And it goes back to like kind of what we discussed before. Make sure you have, an authentic connection to the game. It's reflected on your socials that I think it's just really important. The first thing they want to see is, let me see your LinkedIn. What do you have up there? And like, make sure all your social networks are all dialed, and that you're representing yourself really well. And that I just say, hit them all. Like, and I know that sounds crazy, but I'd never be afraid. Somebody will get back to you, and that's your first foot in the door. And then you'll kind of go from there.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. One of the things that I think you mentioned first in terms of a list, I could definitely think you should create a list, like a spreadsheet of just, all the different studios. And I mean, the way we do it, like for companies, we just have a database, then we have all the contacts next to the name of the company and the status of that conversation. Like all that stuff is kind of, standard process. I think you should have. One thing that we've done, and this is slightly different. I mean, I run an agency and I run another business that is specifically focused on gaming and music, which we're announcing next month. And one of the biggest DJs in the world is our business partner in it. So I'm excited to announce it, but I can't say anything just yet. But one of the things we've done, for example, with that, although, we've got the label, we've got the business, we host talks a lot. We'll do loads of stuff like that. And we invite the people we want to work with to sit on those talks with us. So it's like, okay, if you're an artist, it might be a bit weird, potentially, I don't know, it might not fit with the narrative of your artist brand. But if you're a label, it could make a lot of sense. Like, set up like a virtual talk and just say like, every couple of weeks or a couple of months, you've got something, and just invite the A&R person or the person from the studio to feature on it. They might not come the first time, but you'll probably at some point, like most people like to share their knowledge. Like for me, it's like that tactical way to build relationships, sometimes it's hard to get that message through. So it's like being smart about how you approach people and just, come up with clever ideas around how you can get a conversation with them that doesn't feel like you're trying to sell to them at the start. Not always. Sometimes it makes sense, sell to them at the start because you're ready, but there's other ways to be like super tactical as well, I think, which is, the best way.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with what you're saying. Annie, did you want to add?
Yeah, again, like I think being organized is super important. And like if you've sent an email to somebody in a well-presented email and they don't get back to you in a couple of weeks, like follow up. Maybe make a list and say, have I contacted this person? Yes, I've contacted this person. Should I and then put a date in there so that what's 2 weeks is coming around, and then hit them up again. It's, if you don't ask, you don't get. So just keep going.
Agreed heavily. Nick, do you wanna ask your question? I see you got your hand raised over there. Nick. Oh, I think he typed his question out. So Nick wants to know, he's got a sync licensing with a TV in the past. Should the processes be treated differently while pitching to video games, or would it be the same as pitching to a TV?
I can maybe jump in for this one. The process is the same, but it definitely helped to know, like, if you're signed, not signed, do you have a label behind you? I would basically suggest, if you do have a label behind you, you should get your label to work for you. They represent you. They should be trying to help you find opportunities in the spaces that you really like. That's my just personal opinion. And then if you're not signed to a label, it should be pretty seamless to get your music into games. Very, like, the pitch is very similar. I would say yes. And then your second question, any tips on cold calling? You know, I think it comes down to how you present yourself. I think it's just really important to make sure you're presenting yourself in the right light, that you know your audience and who you're talking to. Do research on the people that you're reaching out to. I think it's important to look up what they've worked on, how they're involved in the business, and be able to speak to that really well. Even like, you don't need to be creepy about it in your first email, of course not. You don't want to scare them. But you definitely want to be able to know exactly what they've done. And so that when you have those like further conversations, most people are generally impressed, like, oh, okay, they've really done their homework. Amazing. And I do want to, Inder made a really good point, is you're kind of reaching out to these companies. You should just do the research on the ones that you think, just do research, and then keep it all saved somewhere, like a list, all the different brands. But I would say, like, start with the ones that you know. Like, if you know that you want to work on 2K, EA should be your first target. You shouldn't just be like, I'm hitting up everyone. The last thing you want is everyone in the industry saying, okay, well, I just got this email from this guy. Did you get it too? Like, you didn't want it to feel like, I don't know, like you're just trying too hard, in the sense of, like, you want it to be authentic. Make sure you're curating your emails for each specific brand or publisher, IP holder that you're reaching out to. Don't just send out like a generic email for all. It should all be really honest, authentic. Yeah, personalize your messages is right.
Yeah, it comes off sounding like a robot a lot of times when you're pitching to a lot of people.
One thing I just want to throw in a random idea here. Like, I wonder how you can get your audience to work for you, your fans to be your biggest ambassadors. Like, there might be fun ways to leverage your socials and kind of create like a narrative so that your fans are basically tagging all the game developers. I mean, once you get to that stage as an artist, you can game the system. So it's like, okay, all of a sudden, you've got 10,000 whatever plus fans or more, and they're so engaged with your music that they'll do anything to kind of support your vision. So like, I don't know, I'm going to make up an idea here. Like, if you just ask your fans, which game would you want to hear my music in? And 500 people are tagging EA Sports in the comments. Like, okay, someone's going to notice that potentially. And that's a funny thing about the world we live in now. Nothing is like so plain cut in terms of how people get things done. There's always a different approach, and I think you need to like explore all of them. It's not just an email or a LinkedIn message that's going to get you where you want to go to.
Right. You never know unless you try.
So true.
Hey, do you want to add to that? Excuse me.
I think they covered it.
Yeah, I think they did too. Tyler, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, you skipped over me. It's cool though. I'm Tyler.
Listen. I don't want to cause any squabbles here. Listen. I got you.
I'm an intern with Finessed Media as well. I'm on Tiffany's team too. My question is just with shows and live performances being, shut down and everywhere except for Atlanta right now. Do you guys see like a transition happening to where more people are using VR for their performances and stuff? Because I know everybody's trying to do like the live shows, like where you just watch it, but I really wonder, like, is anybody going to take that leap and then, try and use that new technology more often?
I'm happy to take this one. I definitely think that live streaming is here to stay. I think it's an amazing way that we can kind of create almost virtual overflow for venues that either won't be able to work at full capacity anymore, or actually there's now this really accessible technology that we can use for artists to tour in places that they wouldn't actually usually be able to get physically anyway. So I think you're going to be able to see sold out shows from home. And I think every ticket is going to have a live streaming option to it in the future. So it's here to stay.
Sure. I think one thing I would jump in on, like, I don't know if you guys must have seen The Wave. I guess it's probably slightly bigger in the US as well. Like The Weeknd did this virtual concert within that platform, which is quite cool. Definitely worth checking it out. There's a few out there. There's another one called Sansar, which SANSAR is worth checking out. Like these are all platforms where they're kind of engaging artists and hosting virtual events. I think as an artist, potentially, I'm assuming, you know, most of the artists here are still in like the early stages of their development. I think it's worth figuring out how you can execute this stuff with your own crew and collective. And I always speak about this on a wider level, like as an artist, build your collective, right? Don't just rely on these big game developers to be the golden ticket for your career to blow up and your opportunity to enter into a game world. Like, you know, start building a network of younger game developers that might be working at EA in 5 years. Like, build a little movement of people and start experimenting with your own little projects. I mentioned the Unreal Engine before. I would mention it again. Like, check that out. Look at how these tools are kind of becoming so accessible for anyone. Like the Unreal Engine is one of the biggest game development tools in the world. And, you know, to start off with, it's basically free. Like, you don't need to pay anything to use it. So just like experiment with some of that stuff and learn it, but then find other people who can do cool stuff in those worlds. And like, you know, it could be VR, it could be anything in between, but like find out what's going on in that space of kind of immersive content would be the word I would use, and explore like how that could be relevant, you know, for you as an artist. But it's always going to be a case of, I think, building like a group of people around you to kind of create cool projects with, I think will be the way. And, you know, VR, I think just generally is probably not completely there yet in terms of, you know, until every household has a VR headset, it's just not the platform, but as an experience, it's definitely a cool thing to explore.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. I see Marcos has his hand raised. You want to get a question in there, Marcos?
Yeah, thanks, Madison. Awesome.
Of course.
My question's kind of slightly related to the last one. I've seen some stuff that speaks about like virtual artists, similar to like what the Gorillas has done, where like they're not like an actual people, but they have just virtual avatars. So I was wondering if any of you have ever worked on projects either with video game developers or within video game franchises, or maybe slightly related to them, but like with artists sort of presenting themselves in like this more virtual forward presentation.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I did. Sorry, yeah, the one that we did, we've done a few. There's a few coming out this year as well, like playable character type stuff where the artist is their alias essentially. But one we did last year, and it's probably kind of still in the VR world, but with Sansar, we did a virtual festival for Glastonbury, and we booked like 150 artists over 3 days. But it was more about kind of digitizing the artist and in their physical form, basically. So we use things like motion capture, which is another thing to look into, and just like how that, but again, like these tools are crazily becoming super accessible. But yeah, that's kind of the limit that we've gone into. I'm sure, I mean, there's loads of other cool stuff in the space as well.
Yeah, Marcus, I was going to jump in. I've only used like the avatars and digital stuff for like Twitch events that we've participated in. I'm going to sound like such a douche, I guess, but I try and stay away from, I'm really trying to find things that haven't been done before. So I stay away from the avatars and stuff like that. And I think it's great for many reasons. I'm just like I have a personal thing that I'm just trying to find unique ways to kind of come into the space. So I've personally stayed away from that, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the way that develops. I think artist avatars are going to evolve, and I can't wait to see that evolution of how people experience artist avatars. And I think Inder had mentioned it before, like honestly, one of the most impressive activations that has happened to date is definitely Travis Scott Fortnite. Like to me, that was innovative, to have his avatar in there kind of overseeing the whole production of his music and his concert in the game. I just thought it was insane. But I mean, I wish I could answer your question better. I just haven't really done much in that intersection yet.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, the company in particular.
One thing I was
thinking about.
Sorry, I was going to say. Oh, no, sorry, go on. I think there was a little delay there. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say the company that I was thinking about is called Spirit Bomb AI, and basically their whole thing is they have artist avatars that they developed in-house, and then they license music to these virtual avatars to create virtual performances in the virtual worlds that they create. And then there's a sort of interactive element that they have on Twitch. It's pretty cool. I haven't really seen other organizations or other like labels doing it. So I was just curious if there was anything slightly related in the video game world that might exist.
There's two that I'd mentioned. One is League of Legends launched their own virtual band called KDA. And KDA is like this, this band that it's the virtual band in the game, but they're also releasing music, and like Madison Beer did a song with them, and it's got like 85 million views, I believe, which is kind of bizarre, but it makes sense. They're launching the IP in-house. Another one to look at is Genie's avatars. So Genie's is this kind of platform that's an avatar tool, and they've signed up like every major artist you could imagine, and they're basically managing the rights for the avatar. So it's like if Justin Bieber can't go and do a partnership right now, this agency will basically do the partnership but with his avatar self. It's kind of weird and interesting at the same time, but it's definitely a space. It's going to evolve. I mean, there's one topic just to research called direct to avatar. So like people might know like direct to consumer, which is where a brand sells you a product directly. Direct to avatar is this new marketplace that's opening up. My friend Ryan Gill coined the term, and it's super interesting about basically this new marketplace that's opening up about selling products directly to the virtual version of yourself. Which, because as you know, like I don't necessarily have the time, but like my cousins, for example, will spend most of their money on Fortnite skins, and like it's a huge space. So I think the avatar thing is completely relevant and also something to explore, but we're still at the infancy of what it looks like, I think.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I also wanted to add on to what Samira was saying earlier with Travis Scott doing Fortnite and stuff. You got to understand why that makes sense that Travis Scott did Fortnite and stuff. You got to think about his album Rodeo. That's him as a doll and an avatar. The song 90210, the music video, that's him as a doll and an avatar. So that transition from him being an avatar in his songs and in his music videos to him doing it in Fortnite just made sense. So that was a brand that he was building around himself. It's not like he just up and decided, I want to do this day and I want to do this day. Just to add small point to that. But thank you guys for those questions. Let's see.
Madison, can I add to that too? Like, you're right. And if you guys actually, I'd recommend, if you guys haven't seen it yet, there is a report that comes out called Music by Music Ally that highlights some of the biggest marketing campaigns of the year. I would say it's really good to reference because you can see other activations that have happened in the space. Some of them do cross over into that virtual reality section, such as Ava Max did her whole entire album premiere and launch. I think it was Heaven and Hell, I believe it was called. And she did that on Roblox. But you can kind of see a lot of the cool things that are happening, get inspiration for potentially ideas that you might be able to execute yourself, or, how people are kind of approaching the space. Virtual reality is definitely like an interesting one. I am so intrigued. Like Inder's right. It's at the infancy stages. So I'm kind of just sitting back and watching right now. I think that when touring comes back, I think that most artists are going to prefer to tour than they will to do a virtual concert, because really what they're missing the most is that fan interaction and the one-on-one that they get to, like that live audience feeling. Like I know for one that Zedd, we haven't participated in anything virtual because he just really wants to see his fans, and he wants to see them kind of like interact and jump and react to the music. So I know that that's the reason why we haven't done much, but that's why I'm really interested to see how it evolves. If it evolves, then I think you'll see more artists doing it. But I think as a starting out artist, like if you're just trying to, dip your toes in and get started, I think try everything and anything as long as it doesn't hurt you, bother you, make you feel uncomfortable, you know, all that good stuff.
Agreed,
It's
100%.
crazy. The numbers behind the virtual stuff is crazy though. I mean, we've seen a few, but like BTS, which is the K-pop band, did a virtual show and they made $20 million in 24 hours. If you were to compare it to one of the highest grossing shows of like a couple of years ago, it was like Ed Sheeran, and he made 3 million per show, but the overheads and the team involved with the physical show and the environmental impact of it was significantly higher. So it's so fascinating just to see like a virtual show that this band has put on, which probably took maybe a month or so to piece together, made them 20 million versus an Ed Sheeran show which made 3. It's just, yeah, the numbers are just bizarre because of the reach you can get. So I think it's super interesting to figure out where that virtual piece fits into the future in terms of like, you know, having your physical and virtual show at the same time, which I feel there's tools coming out. I think you'll see like a lot of artists are going to start as things progress, they probably will have a virtual element to their performance, so you can, you know, for an audience the other side of the world that can't join, they can also pay for a ticket to experience it, you know, online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also some really innovative ideas coming up. I've seen artists experimenting with having different, like one band, but having individual musicians in different venues and live streaming to make a full band concert. So you're only sending one individual to each location, which is, again, there's great, great sustainability impacts on that as well. So it seems limitless, the way that you can grow with it.
100%. I see Tyler James has a question. Tyler, you want to ask your question?
Oh yeah, my question goes back to what Inder was saying earlier about trying to take videos off of like YouTube or something like that and trying to incorporate your music with it. I just want to know exactly, if you post that stuff, will you be in some type of legal complication, or like how can you go about that a legal way?
Samira, you want to jump in? I guess you're probably creating more gaming related stuff than I am.
Well, I was going to say 2 things. Inder, you've definitely made a good point when it comes to the virtual shows, and basically how much revenue it can generate for an artist. So I have to keep an open mind. So thank you for that. And then 2, yes, you definitely want to be careful. I would highly suggest that if you're going to take content off of YouTube, that you make sure you reach out to the content creator and make sure it's okay that you're using their stuff. I would say that it's probably better to try and create original content. So like you playing the game, clip it, and then set music to that. I think that's the safer route, but definitely if you're going to take anybody else's footage or anything of the sort, just try and reach out either to their camp and let them know and make sure it's okay. Sometimes they might even provide you with it. You never know, but I would say original content is definitely the best way to go, the safest way to go, so that you don't run into any legal headaches, for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see who's next. Justin, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for this event. This is dope. Shout out to Brianna, who is interning with y'all, that invited me. I'm an artist producer, been in sync for about a year and a half now. But my question has to do with, given the social injustice that's going on, the racial tension is super high. I have a song here, if you see it in the background, This Black Skin. I want to know if these type of songs can be put in video games, or is it a good idea for video games. My goal, dream, is to be in NBA 2K. Madden would probably be the second, but I'm really, I guess, just enthused about encouraging Black people, minorities, you know, all of it in an encouraging way. So the song is an up-tempo joint, but I'm just considering, man, would it be a good idea to probably pitch to EA Sports on a song like this? Because I'm not sure if I've seen it like that or heard it like that. So just want to get some thoughts on that.
I mean, in my opinion, of course it's okay. I think that you should absolutely reach out to them and see if, you know, they're interested in the track. I mean, it's hard to say because I'm not on the game development side. I talk to a lot of game developers and kind of have some insight into the way they're thinking, but I think they're just looking for stuff that connects with the, the moment. It's really hard to say, as they're kind of going through the process and they're building the visual identity, they're just trying to find the music that matches. In some instances, and sometimes they're looking for bespoke music, so making something from scratch. So maybe I would say that from reaching out, maybe the opportunity arises for you to potentially make a song that conveys the message that you want. It might not be the exact song that you already have ready, but you could still get your message through. But I would say definitely, yeah, reach out to any of them. It's like you reach out to EA today and be like, I'm ready. I got this. I got this track, to Dream of Mine to be, have this play a role in 2K. Maybe give them some of the backstory of why. And I think you have a great chance. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's also worth looking at, like, if some of the major game developers, if you type in diversity and the title of the game studio, you'll find out a little bit more about what they're actually doing. And, like, then at least when you message them, you can kind of reference some of their existing policies and stuff. So for example, Apex Legends, they've made such a big deal about making sure the game appears diverse and the characters are all mixed in terms of gender, race, size, everything. So it's like super, if you also are aware that the studio has a policy around diversity and inclusion specifically, I think, thank you, Tiffany. It's definitely worth, like, referencing it as well, and just to, like, make sure you don't go in completely blind in terms of, the song is great, but you also know that it's going to fit with the ethos that they're trying to implement in the company, and you can mention it, so it's like it just ticks all the boxes for them as well. Like, okay, you clearly get it in terms of what they're trying to achieve as well.
Thank you. It's good. I appreciate it. Again, this Black Skin coming out next Friday. Small promo. Appreciate the support.
You'll get your chance at the end, I promise. Let's get one more question in here. Let's get Ashray. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
My name's Ashray. Really glad to be here. Thank you again. Shout out to Brianna as well for inviting me. My question is kind of, I guess, more related to my background. My background is more of a composer. I do, work as an artist, as a solo artist as well, but I'm kind of looking more on the side of writing the music for, like games or other content. Like you were mentioning, like talking with game developers and stuff like that. So I was, trying to see what the best ways to connect with those people are, because there's so many different avenues of social media and like emailing and, cold calling or whatever there is. I guess that's, what I'm interested in finding out, and, what every channels have worked the best for you.
Sure. Annie, you want to start on that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you take it in the same way as an artist takes it, is you put together a deck, or you make sure that your socials are all in line. Maybe put together a little sampler, like a little sampler on SoundCloud with different styles of tracks, and maybe you can list them for different moods that would relate to the games or the companies that you're targeting. I think having a little range of like 5 tracks that you can just pop in an email to somebody is a really nice way to showcase your talents.
That's a great answer. Inder, do you want to add to that?
I think the first step is probably like creating a list. I always find it super useful when you're doing this is technically a sales specific role. If you think about it, like, you're treating yourself like a business and you're trying to sell a product to an end client. So I would just try and get that like the method first down. So like having a solid spreadsheet, as we discussed earlier, just making sure you're tracking that and the status of the conversations, and you try a few different channels. This is the thing about sales. It's like there's no one way to do it. It's like you can experiment with a few different approaches and measure the impact. Like, when maybe one week you'll focus exclusively on LinkedIn. The next week you might focus on trying to do something a different way with meeting people in person when that's possible, or using Twitter, and just, you use it your own way. You can test and see what works and like what message works and resonates, and maybe something that doesn't quite cut through, or there's something you said that just seems to work with everyone. So, I think you've got to experiment a little bit and just try and create like a method that becomes kind of repeatable. So it's a little bit of a vague answer, but I think try and get a process in place. Probably start with a spreadsheet to list everyone that you want to target, and just try and okay, this is the status of that conversation. I messaged them, they didn't reply, or so on. And like within a few months, you'll get pretty good at it, I think.
Agreed with that as well. Samira, do you want to add something?
I mean, I think they covered it. I mean, to answer your question of where have you seen the most success, I've seen the most success via email. I'm not saying that that's the way to go, but I've also, you sent Twitter DMs, anything and everything. I try it all. So honestly, it's really personal preference, but I really am in their face until I get an answer. I'm kind of relentless in that regard. But I think that Inder had really great insight, and so did Annie. So I think that if you kind of take all of that and try it, I think you'll find success. And I was going to say, if you're really interested in composing music or growing in that regard, you should really try and find indie dev studios that are kind of growing, and kind of maybe help them compose music for some of the stuff that they're working on. That's a really great way to kind of break into the industry on a composition side. And I think that, consider even getting a composing gig at one of the companies if you can find a role that fits and you can kind of get in there. I think any experience that you can get just actually being on that side is great. But indie, and I cannot believe I'm forgetting the name because it's a good friend of mine who runs it. But I'm pretty sure it's called Play. It's a New York-based indie game event. They have it every single year, and it's grown tremendously over the past few, but they're always looking for composers, and it's all these little studios that come together, and then they present some of their games sometimes at E3 or PAX and so on and so forth. So it does definitely like amplify your reach and kind of like help you get started.
That was a great answer. We're gonna get one more question, and I think Bobbin wanted a question to get in, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into the listening session really quickly after this. But I had one question. I don't know if you guys will definitely be able to speak to this, but maybe you can. I know, like, I've noticed that a lot of the streaming concerts have been pre-recorded. So I was wondering if you guys know if that's in the artist budget or is that in the platform's budget, and do you know if a indie artist or somebody would have success trying to pitch a pre-recorded concert or show?
Just quickly, I mean, yes, in some ways, Twitch, for example, if you build up a good Twitch strategy and find the right people, I mean, I'll just say it. They are giving out money. I was like, should I say it? Should I not say it? They're giving out money to the right people, to the right artists. If you can this is more about scale though. I'm talking about creating regular live streams as opposed to one-offs. Sponsorships and stuff like that for one-off live shows can be quite hard. I think you need to leverage your fan base for them to kind of donate and use that mechanic really probably for to monetize that. But I would say on the streaming side, definitely build a Twitch strategy and then try get in touch with the right people and build your audience, because they are paying content creators to kind of migrate their content over to YouTube. And we've worked on and been across a number of different examples where they're paying in some cases up to 6 figures just to say exclusively make content for Twitch now. And so I would definitely just build it, and you'd be surprised, these aren't artists who necessarily have huge audiences. They're just building up great content. They're doing studio sessions where they're doing 3-hour live streams making a track. So it's everything in between in terms of the live stream, I would say, in terms of revenue. I hope that kind of answers that. I kind of missed the start of the question.
Yeah, no, that's definitely helpful. I was just wondering if they should do performances and if they could sell off the one-off, but you're saying that's probably not likely.
I think on pre-recorded. I was sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, was it?
Go ahead, Samira.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. So sorry, Annie. I was just asking if you were talking about pre-recorded because it went over. I missed the first part.
Yeah. I was wondering if that would be if that's valuable to sell something pre-recorded, or if that's even possible.
Annie, did you want to answer?
I think pre-recorded content has its place. I think. In terms of Twitch, I think they want to see consistency and they want to see live. So I think if you're probably with an allowance for like 20% kind of pre-recorded content, what they really want is they want it to be live. And I think actually it's a much better way to connect with your audience. It doesn't take long on YouTube or Facebook for people to realize that when something's pre-recorded, and I think that's not what the content that people are after at the moment. That being said, a well-produced pre-recorded live show always does great on socials, and the more that you can have of that everywhere, the better, always.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I was gonna just add that what they mentioned is absolutely correct. I did do a pre-recorded show. That's how I launched Zedd's Twitch channel. Shockingly, it did way better than I thought it would. I don't know if I'd recommend it. I was stressed the whole entire time. I was like, oh my God, are people gonna hate it? But we spent beaucoup bucks to make sure that pre-recorded show that we shared was immaculate, and you got to essentially experience the Orbit Tour live. So I think the quality of the pre-record also does matter. But I would say live is best. And like the reason why you're seeing somebody like Kenny Beats, who I helped get started on Twitch, doing so well is because he's kind of like, it's not only that he's sharing his music creation process, he's sharing his life. Like he's sharing his whole mindset of, honestly, like don't fuck, I didn't mean to curse. Don't
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Sorry, I generally don't curse, but don't overthink shit.
It's in the title, so yeah.
Yeah. But don't overthink shit. And it's just, he's just kind of, living his life, showing you all, and that's what people are really there for. So I think as an artist, if you're trying to grow on a live streaming platform or something similar to Twitch or YouTube, I think just be yourself and have fun, show the process if you can share it. People are just going to love that. There's a really famous Twitch artist that is growing, and I do not know her name, and I will find out, but she basically blew up because she shared literally the creation of her whole entire album. Insane. So there's a lot of innovative ways to kind of grow and do things when it comes to streaming and live and pre-record.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Great answer. I want to thank you guys so much for first off asking questions, but I want to thank the panelists for giving their answers and crazy insight into the video game and music world. That was nuts. Can I get some virtual snaps for that? My bad. Virtual snaps. Thank you.